Everyone, how's it going? Back again with another video. Hope everyone's had a great week this week. And today I just wanted to chat a little bit about the personal experience I'm having. So this month, or actually for most of this month, I've been really focusing and buckling down on this weight. By the time this video comes out the next day, actually, I will have competed in or will be competing in a grip competition. That's very kind of niche competition. If you're familiar with powerlifting, it's powerlifting a little bit, but for your grip. So there's 3 lifts that I have to do, 3 different lifts, but all the lifts are focused primarily on grip strength. And like most powerlifting competitions and that type of stuff, there are different weight classes, right? Because people of different weights and different sexes have different advantages. To make things fair and compare across people, they introduce weight classes. And so I just naturally fluctuate between 2 weight classes. So if I was just to eat normally without too much restriction, not being terribly mindful, but still being like not eating like a jerk type of thing, I fall within this, let's say 155 to 160 weight range. That's just where I would naturally fall from body weight perspective. And that puts me right on the edge of the 70 kilogram weight class. 70 kilograms is 154 pounds, basically. And at the bottom of a weight class in one aspect, so if I weigh more than 154 pounds, then I'm in the over 70 kilogram weight class, and that goes up almost like 200 pounds, I think. Most of the people in that weight class have a very big size advantage to me, on me. And if I just lost a few pounds, I can get down into the lower weight class and I can be a little bit more competitive because I'm sitting at the top of that weight class. And also, admittedly, there's not a ton of men that sit in that weight class. There's not a ton of men that are 154 pounds or less. I have a little bit of advantage competing in that weight class, more so than if I was to compete in the above 70 kilogram weight class, just because the men are just so much bigger than I am. And most people are stronger than I am. When it comes time to compete in these competitions, I tend to have to make a cut because, like I said, I naturally kind of weigh in between 155 to 160 just without just paying too much attention to my diet, having a little bit more foods creep in, just being a little bit loose about things. That's where I naturally sit. So the first time I had to do this was last year. And actually, I was coming off of a very aggressive kind of bulk last year where I actually had pushed my body weight up to above 160 by kind of the end of January. And that was done on purpose, and it was hard to do. And again, it was not natural for me to do that. And I had to cut down to 154 by the time June came around. This year, I did not bulk up as much. I decided to keep my kind of wintertime muscle strength gain phase in between that 155 to 160 range, just because going up a 160 is just hard for me. It's hard to eat that much food. It takes a lot of effort, frankly, uncomfortable. And so I just feel a little bit more comfortable in that 155 to 160 range. And I'm still probably in a surplus, enough of a surplus there to make some muscle gain. But that said, I had to cut down for this competition that's coming up this week. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my experience about doing it this year. You can see here on screen, I have my weight loss graph. So I've been weighing in pretty consistently, just paying. March is where I starting to think about this. Like I'm starting to pay attention. I'm like, okay, I don't really want to go off the rails here or make this harder than I need to be. So come May and June, that I'm in a good spot to just buckle down and get there. So you can see for most of March, the middle of March, I was at, 157 or so. There's a dip right there in the beginning of the chart. That's actually because I got sick. My son came home with some kind of illness and I didn't eat for 3 days, or I ate a lot less food for 3 days. So my body weight dropped down after that period for a bit before it came back to normal after returning. My appetite came back. And then I survived a couple of major birthdays in my family in the beginning of April. My wife turned 40 and my daughter turned 10. And so obviously big birthdays, lots of celebrations. We had a weekend away, me and my wife. And so obviously lots of cake and celebrations and foods that I just wouldn't normally eat. So kept weight stable, pretty good there, around 155 in the beginning of April, hover around 156 towards the end of April. And then May came and I was like, all right, now I need to start kind of buckling down here and getting a little bit serious here, because I have about a 2-month span here where I need to get down from around 156 down to below 154. In fact, what I really shoot for, my goal is by the Friday before the competition that I'm at 150 or below, and that I weigh in on Saturday morning when I wake up at 150 or below. And that gives me some wiggle room so I can drink water before I go to the official weigh-in the morning of the competition. And I don't have to thirsty for several hours when I wake up. And also I can weigh in with clothes on, basically. So I have about a pound or so I need for clothes, and that gives me a little bit of wiggle room so I can, just be more comfortable the morning of the competition. And so that's my goal, is really to weigh in around 150 or below come day of competition. And the beginning of May, I started to get serious. So I just want to say how I approached this. I started to get serious. So what does that mean? What I really did for most of May is just be a little bit more conscious about, I would say, extracurricular activities around food. So if I'm at a party or I'm going to go out to eat, or, where I'm not eating at home, basically, I'm not as loosey-goosey as I normally would be. I might have one drink instead of 2 to 3 drinks. I might have no appetizer and just have dessert, or I might have an appetizer and no dessert. And so I'm just being a little bit more conscious through the month of May about eating outside of the house, because my diet, for the most part, inside of the house is dialed in. I'm eating meat, vegetables, fruits, and starches from Whole Foods when I'm in the house. But when I'm going out, it's a little bit more, I loosen the reins. I don't go out terribly often, maybe once a week on average or so. And then I just kind of loosen up the reins a little bit. But when I'm out, I was just starting to be a little bit more conscious about the decisions I was making around the food that I was choosing when I was going out. And that shedded a couple of pounds. So I got down from around 156 towards the end of May. I'm sitting there 154, 153 a little bit. So then by the end of May, I'm in a pretty good spot. So now I just need to be conscious, a little bit more strict at home with the foods that I'm eating here. And that just involves reducing a little bit of calories. I started cutting back on my breakfast a little bit. So I usually have this crepe thing that I make almost every morning. You can find a video on my YouTube of how I make it. It's a very thin pancake that I use Birch Bender's Paleo pancake mix, and I put some dehydrated peanut butter on there. I put banana and some maple syrup and stuff like that. So I would just cut back on that. Not as much banana, maybe cut back on the maple syrup a little bit and just slim down that way. Same thing. So I would just lunch and dinner are the same thing. I just wouldn't do as much. And so I would have a little dessert at night. I make some protein ice cream in the Ninja Creamy. If you're not familiar with the Ninja Creamy and you like healthy ice cream made out of literally almond milk and protein powder, you should check that thing out. But I cut back on that type of stuff. I would just cut back on kind of the fun foods in my diet, basically a little bit that just bring me kind of pleasure and enjoyment, not necessarily starving myself. I'm not hungry. These are just nice to have type of food that I'm able to eat if I'm just naturally, happy with my body composition. And so I started cutting back on those fun foods, and that shaved off a few more pounds, right? Just being more conscious, again, being conscious about what I'm eating out. I still went out for dinner. I particularly remember going out for dinner beginning of June with another couple, and we had appetizers and drinks and stuff like that. So I still had a couple of those nights, but they were just more spread out further in between. And so just being conscious about eating outside of the house, and then just being a little bit more strict about the foods that I was eating when I was at home, and just cutting back on the nice to have foods got me down a couple more pounds. So now I'm getting closer to 152 towards the beginning of June. And now as I'm approaching here, we're at June. Today I'm recording this is June 14th. I weighed in at 150 pounds this morning, which is my target body weight for day of competition. So I've gotten down to that. And the way I've gotten down to that is really just everything looks the same as it was in May. I've instead just introduced for lunch, I've been having a protein shake instead of my normal lunch, which literally my lunch is normally some type of meat, animal protein, a whole plate full of veggies and some berries. And so instead of having that big meal, and so granted, a lot of this is like manipulating just, I'm probably not losing that much fat. I'm just manipulating the amount of food that's in my stomach, and I'm just weighing less because I'm not eating as much like heavyweight food. And it's probably a little bit less calories, but the protein shake has maybe 30 to 40 grams of banana in it, ice, and 2 scoops of whey protein powder. There's about a lot of ice. It fills up the entire blender by the time it's all blended with water. And so the volume is very big. It keeps me full for until dinner time. And I've been doing that for this week, the week before the competition, and I've gotten down to 150 pounds as of today. Actually, on Wednesday, I weighed in at 49.7, so I dipped below 150 pounds earlier this week. Goal is over the weekend to either maintain 150 pounds or less, just for the rest of the remainder of the 7 days until I get to Friday. And of course, this weekend's a little bit challenging from a social perspective for me because it's Father's Day weekend and my kids want to do things with me and celebrate and my family and whatnot. So I want to be there. And I actually have a dad's group here tomorrow for Father's Day weekend. A bunch of dads are getting together and we're going to have a barbecue. And so I'm going to be outside my normal food environment Saturday and Sunday. I've decided that on the actual Father's Day, I actually decided on what meal I wanted to stay home and eat. And I decided this is a lobster bake for Father's Day. So I'm getting some lobster and some clams and some corn on the cob. So it's definitely a healthy dinner. But one thing I'm going to do this weekend is I'm probably going to limit alcohol. Probably going to stick to non-alcohol beer, and I'm going to stick to low-calorie non-alcoholic beer if I have any, and stick to water and just limit that because that can be a thing. I do plan on having some kind of dessert on Sunday because my daughter I think she wants to make brownies. She's going to make brownies for me for Father's Day, and I can't tell her no and say no to her brownies because that's just, no competition is worth that. I don't care what the weight gain may be, which probably be minimal because I'm only going to have a piece of brownie. But yeah, I'll have the brownie on Sunday, and I'll have probably a couple of non-alcoholic beers over the weekend. But I'm going to be mindful and continue on with the same way I've been eating all week. And that trend that I see here this last week of June that we've been in should probably continue. And if it doesn't continue and I pause over the weekend and maybe weight goes up a little bit, I know that if I continue doing what I was doing this week, that I will drop back down. And by Saturday, a week from now, I will be where I need to be for the day of the competition. That's how I approach it. And I just wanted to relate this to you because it's not anything. It's a little bit different because I have a deadline for where I need to meet this weight goal. And it's not critical. It's not a life or death decision. If I weigh in above 154 pounds on Saturday, the only downside to that is I'm going to be in a higher weight class and I'm just not going to be able to compete with those guys, and I will place as well. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not getting paid for this. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'll still be able to compete against myself. So whatever, but I do have a goal and I do have a weight goal, and that's how I approach it. And this is generally just how, when you have a weight loss goal, how I think you should go about thinking about it. Would I recommend replacing, like I'm doing this week, replacing lunch with a shake instead? Not necessarily. It's not ideal I think that probably is the one thing that I've been doing just for the sake of making weight. That is probably not ideal to do long term. Is it detrimental to me in the short term? No, because the rest of my meals are super nutrient dense, eating whole food proteins the rest of the meals, lots of fruits and vegetables for the rest of the time. And yeah, I think it's detrimental long term? No, I'm missing out a little bit of nutrients from my lunch. It's not my preferred way of eating. I don't really like to eat shakes. So I'm looking forward to not having to eat a shake after next Saturday for a while. But sometimes you just gotta make some sacrifices to get down to a certain weight, and that's what I'm doing. But it's not detrimental to me. I'm not harming my body. You can see calorie wise. Actually, you can't see because I didn't show you the chart. I don't know if I can change this now at this point, but I can't. But calorie wise, just to give you an idea of where I'm sitting calorie wise, at the beginning of March, I was around close to 2,500 calories a day. And right now I'm sitting just below 2,000 calories. So I've cut roughly 400 calories out of the diet to get down to this weight. And so that's reasonable over the course of 3 months, honestly. And most of that calorie cutting has come in the last couple of weeks. But the other thing I want to mention, I know this video is going a little bit long, but you can make a lot of progress just by being a little bit more conscious about the meals that you're eating outside of the house. Because I think that's where a lot of like extra calories come in when you start going out for dinners and you get some drink and you get some appetizers, you get some dessert. Like those meals are probably 3, 4, 5,000 calories. And when you start to just not be as flexible with those meals, and those things can add up and make a big difference, even if you're only going out like a couple once a week or twice a week, like I am. Rarely do I go out twice a week, mostly once a week. And when you have like birthday celebrations and parties and social gatherings, and you start to just be conscious in those situations, you can make a lot of progress. And that's really where most of the progress has come for me over the past few months, is just tightening up meals outside of my house and just being more conscious about the food choices and drink choices that I'm making outside of my house as opposed to when I'm inside the house. And only the last few weeks have I had to really alter my diet that I normally eat on a day-to-day basis. And that's yielded just a little bit quicker results as I get down to the end here. And so I just want to relay that as just a real life experience for myself and how I approach these things. And frankly, how I approach things for clients, right? Like the first thing I'm going to look at is like, let's leave your diet alone, but let's look at where you're consuming food outside the house and how can we optimize that a little bit. And when weight loss is a concern, like that can make a huge difference, especially if you're doing it more than once a week and it's multiple times a week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I hope this is useful to share some data with you from myself, my own experiences, and I'm happy to discuss this a little bit more with you. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below, shoot me a direct message, anything like that, please reach out to me. As always, if you want to keep up with these videos that I create or the blog posts that I put out on a weekly basis, you can register for my newsletter at rjbhealth.coach. Click on the newsletter link at the top of that website and enter your email address, and I will email you all the content that I put out. It's free. All of it is actionable, and it's just a couple of emails a week. And I do have a couple spots for one-on-one coaching. So if you're someone who is looking to lose a bit of weight or improve your body composition and need some help implementing that and accountability, please, again, reach out to me. You can direct message me or email me or however you want to get in contact with me. But probably the best way to, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, is go to my website, rjbhealth.coach. Click on the schedule discovery call button right on the homepage. That will bring you to a form that you fill out that form. I'll get an email. I'll reach out to you and we can chat a little bit more about one-on-one coaching. So with that, I'll talk to you all next week. I'll let you know how the competition went. And I hope everyone has a great week and great weekend.